All right, folks, so we're back. It is breaking dawn. It is Friday morning. Thursday was a holiday, of course, so we have Mr. Ramkumar Narinesingh, who would usually be on a Thursday, but he's on this morning, and we're going to chat about retrenchment this morning with Mr. Narinesingh. For those of you who have sent us messages complimenting the segment, we thank you for that, because it's meant to, spark that conversation in terms of industrial relations affairs, because there's a need for that right now, especially with the months to come, the economic position, some of the positions companies are taking. And one of the discussions we'll have here, and why we're going to have this conversation on retrenchment, is because it's in the paper. We saw in Wednesday's paper on June 15th, on page 7 of the Newsday actually, and most of you will know about this, it's been all over WhatsApp, all over social media. TSTT says retrenched workers can stay until July 15th, and the CWU continues to fight the restructuring of TSTT, which apparently comes with a lot of retrenchment, as they're apparently downsizing. And there was a matter in the court with these workers that were given these letters, retrenchment letters, and the union picked up on it. Because certain things that should have occurred did not occur, where the retrenchment process takes place, but Mr. Narinesingh will walk us through that. And then we have Unilever, who is currently in the process of sending home over 100 workers next month. So that's 100 more people out of work. So, good morning to Mr. Narinesingh. Welcome back to Breaking Dawn. And let's get straight into the discussion. Retrenchment. Why does a company retrench?
Yes, Stefan. So, retrenchment, you have a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions as it relates to what constitutes a retrenchment. What does it really mean? In simple industrial relations language, retrenchment exercise is a process where a company has identified that they have surplus manpower to what is needed based on a system that maybe they are restructuring, maybe they have, they're making their company more efficient, maybe their business operations has slowed down, maybe their financial disposition has changed, loss of income revenue, change in market demands. All these things contribute to a company ending up in a position where it maybe cannot sustain itself. Or maybe the company in its entirety is changing its outlook. Companies have done that over the years. They change the environment that they're operating in, their market feels, that kind of thing. And with that, what you would find is that the company now has a change in its operational need, right? The industrial relations term is operational exigencies, but operational needs. And it ties back into what we have discussed in the first and second segment, where employees, based on their duties and responsibilities or their skill sets, they may not have a place in the organization anymore because the company's operations has changed. And as we were talking about right before the show started, where you have companies that are maybe moving more into a technological area of operations, and they're reducing the need for people to actually be doing the work and moving into computers doing the work and equipment doing the work and that kind of thing. But anyway, when that happens, there's a clear outline in the Retrenchments and Severance Benefits Act, the RSBA, on what is a roadmap on what has to apply. The act is very short. It's actually 26 articles, which is short when you consider things like our Constitution, hundreds of articles, and even the Industrial Relations Act. I think our act carries over maybe near to 100, maybe 80-something articles, give or take. So 26 articles is not a lot, and anybody can download it. It's downloadable. Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act. Now, the first thing that you have to pay attention to, and tying it in with what happened, with TSTT. And you saw the leader of the union in his comments in the news. He said that TSTT should fire the people who gave them the advice.
Yeah, he said that. Clyde,
Yeah, and
Clyde Ella
Stefan-
did say that. I had him on for an interview last week.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was last week, or was it early this? No, it was last week, I think it was. Yeah.
Stefan, he might be very well right. You see, when you consider that the company announced, and if you look back in the media reports, you'll see it, that they announced that they're retrenching, and they're gonna pay the 45 days in lieu of.
In lieu of, yeah.
Let me tell you what that means. It means that they're gonna stop the workers from working today, they're gonna stop their service today, and the 45 days that payment that is required under the Act, they're gonna pay it in advance. They're gonna pay, I'm just gonna give you a lump sum, and that is supposed to cover.
And this is in lieu of the proper notice.
Right.
Right.
So what does proper notice constitute? Well, even when you the Act calls for the worker to be given notice prior to the date of the retrenchment taking effect. So that means that 45 days before you make the decision to stop the worker's service by virtue of him now being declared as redundant, you have to give the worker this notice. So it's not something that you could pay in advance and stop the service. The Act is very clear, and we maybe have well over a couple dozen judgments in the industrial court that have ruled against companies that made the decision to pay in lieu of, and the court ruled that there is no system that allows you to pay in advance. The worker's service must not be stopped. As a matter of fact, in the Act, it's clearly explained within the first 10 articles, if I'm not mistaken. Don't hold me to that. But it's there. It says that where the company is giving notice, and if there's a union, the Act says that the employer may consult. I want to be clear about that. The industrial court, proper industrial relations practices, good industrial relations practices dictate that the employer should consult. Also, even if there is no union, the company should engage in a process of communication with the affected employee or employees. And I explained to them why this process is taking place. Now, when you look at what happened with TSTT making that announcement, of course the union was well within its authority and in exercising its responsibility. It filed an injunction because now there is legitimate grounds to claim that this is not a retrenchment within the meaning of the Act. You're failing to follow the law.
Yeah.
And what you saw happen was that they went to court, and the court ruled that the 45 days period must be respected. And with that 45 days period being effected or implemented, what happened is that the people who are being retrenched, their service will now be extended until, I think it's July, they announced it or whatever.
Yeah, July. But let me, July, until July the 15th.
Yeah.
But okay, here's the thing. This seems to be a very basic error that was made.
Right.
Good. The error here that was made, the persons in TSTT that made the decision to carry out this retrenchment process in this manner, should they not have known that they were breaching any part of the Industrial Relations Act or any agreement with the Communication Workers Union, any obvious procedure? Should they not have known that they were going about this the wrong way and they would lose in court?
Well, like you just said, it's a basic error. And let me tell you something.
Because it's TSTT, right?
This is TSTT. So this is a government body that has the ability not only to access competent advice from maybe the people that they operate with in industrial relations and human resource, but they also have access to the Ministry of Labor.
Good point. Yes, that's true.
Ministry of Labor, I am almost 100% certain that TSTT falls under the Ministry of
That would be, oh gosh,
They fall under
Ministry
ministry.
Communications? Is communications? I
They
think
fall
it's
under a
communications.
ministry.
Or public, is it
Public utilities, I think they may
it's
fall
public
under.
utilities,
But
yeah.
nonetheless, they fall under the ambits of a ministry.
Yeah.
And any minister could take up a phone and call a minister. The CEO of TSTT could take up the phone and call the... As a matter of fact, you could take up the phone and call the Ministry of Labor, and the chief conciliator will probably take your call.
Right.
I'm almost certain of it, or a senior conciliator will give them that advice. So what you're asking there, now you use the word error, and I'm hearing that people in the public, they use that word a lot. But let me tell you all something, Trinidad and Tobago. There's a difference between an error and a failure. And what we have in Trinidad and Tobago is people conveniently use the word error to explain a failure. Let me tell you, an error is an occurrence, an incident that has happened as a consequence of somebody, or the information, the knowledge, or the capacity not being present. And as a consequence of maybe good intent, despite the good intent, you ended up with a result that you did not want or is harmful. And that they are coming out of an error, you could have an accident. But where you have an incident occurring where the competence is obvious, this is ABC mistaken in a retrenchment process, and you have the capacity being there, or the opportunity for the information to be secured and procured, and yet still the action was taken that led to an adverse effect. Because make no mistake, there's a cost now that becomes additional to what would have been the regular cost for retrenchment. Yes, of course they have legal fees, Stefan, that came up. They would have an additional calculation to make. They would have more manpower to put in, to utilize, to get this process completed. That is not an error, Stefan. That is a failure.
Okay, but okay, I'm glad you used the word failure. I'm glad you used the word failure, because another part of this is that, in my conversations with Clyde Elder, that the Communication Workers Union continues to fight the restructuring of TSTT. So, based on the level of incompetence that has occurred here, in the way that they made this move to carry out this retrenchment process, according to Clyde Elder, it appears that TSTT is being made to look incompetent or not profitable,
right,
in order for Amplia to take over.
Okay.
Right? So, even within this retrenchment process, this failure that you are terming it, right? This failure, not error, this failure could be part of an agenda to make TSTT look bad, because this failure has led you to the court where you have lost.
Yeah. Now, I want to make a comment on something here. You see, now, first off, the relationship with CWU and the TSTT, there's a proverbial marriage.
Okay.
And we are the people on the outside. We like the neighbors looking in. And we
yeah.
don't know really
We're trying to
what's
through a
going
window
on.
behind a
Correct.
curtain, right?
Now, I will just make this comment as a member of the public. Something that I found very strange. In the last couple of months, maybe 3 months or so, there was this great upsurge, Stefan, in people cutting down all the cables in TSTT.
Correct,
which
yeah.
led to the public now losing faith in the service of TSTT, because the service itself is now sabotaged by virtue of the activities of these people. And make no mistake, I've seen the police make arrests on that kind of thing, so clearly. But it is very convenient in my view that for the last, all of a sudden, TSTT existed for the last how much ever years, and the copper demand in Trinidad and Tobago existing for how much ever years as well.
Correct.
And all of a sudden, and then we in a pandemic for the last 2 years, and they only started cutting down in the last 3 months.
In the last 3 months,
that right there as it is.
Because I mentioned to Mr. Elder, I said, all this back pay that you all are owed, would it have made more sense for TSTT to hire a team to cut down all these copper cables,
Yes.
sell the copper, get what the copper is worth on at the market value today, take that money and at least put it towards part of all your back pay?
Well, Stefan, let me leave that right there. It might make sense, but let me leave that alone because here's what I'll say. When you consider, right, I am certain that Mr. Elder would have made his comments about the functionality and the structure of TSCT based on what he's aware of in the organization.
In the organization,
right?
yeah.
We are not in a position to really say whether or not what he's claiming is true or not.
Right.
Right? So as far as I'm concerned, but I want to just speak about it from a perspective of an employer and its workforce.
And the workforce. But the failure,
yes.
What department that comes from? Who's responsible for that?
That will come from the Human Resource Department.
That's human resource?
Yes.
That's the same thing that you do?
Yes, but okay. So,
okay.
Yes, industrial relations.
So but could we safely say that the SCT might need to change the human resource management and maybe you need to help them with that because
maybe they should add
maybe they should get some advice
to the retrenchment list.
Okay, no problem.
Maybe
right. They should add the human resource department to the
yes,
retrenchment list. All right, good.
But
nice.
Trinidad and Tobago, and let me say this to the public, Stefan. A retrenchment exercise, people, it's purely at the discretion of the business owner. And you see, it's the business owner that decides what model they want to operate with in their business, what type of markets they want to do, whatever it may be. What is their plan for taking the business back to profitability? Now, something that unions have probably not capitalized on over the years is really bringing to bear their expertise or their advice in supporting that process. Now, make no mistake, I am certain unions are going to say, well, we have provided employers over the years with a lot of recommendations. But you see, even in at the negotiating table, that can be used as an opportunity to have these recommendations emphasized or added or strengthened in value, your contribution strengthened in value in that negotiation process. But that's a whole different thing. The point is, once an employer makes a decision that they're going to restructure their business, the truth is there's very little that the workforce can do. And even in this instance, Stefan, whilst Mr. Elder is claiming that, that the company could use other alternatives to prevent the retrenchment. The truth is, at the end of the day, and maybe he will lean on moral suasion and engaging with the government because TSCT is a state.
Well, they claim that they're not, eh?
Well, it's a TSCT. That's a different conversation.
Recently, the Minister of Public Utilities said they're just a shareholder.
Yes, because
it's not a state company.
Well, it's
but don't they own 51%?
Exactly.
Right. If you own the majority, you understand what I'm saying? But the other thing in terms of the retrenchment process, what Mr. Elder was saying, he said, if you're going to retrench workers, start with those closer to retirement.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it seems like the people are making sense, not in the HR department,
correct.
But go ahead.
But to start with that process, what we may not have in TSCT, and this is what you all also have to pay attention to what happens in the court a lot with retrenchment exercise. Most of the time when companies are doing retrenchment, they have to use something called LIFO, last in, first out.
Okay.
Now, the reason why some people in Trinidad and Tobago think that is a law or rule. The truth is, the reason why employers have to do that is because they do not have a competent system that has been maintained over the years in measuring the performance of their staff. It comes back, unfortunately, to the HR department. And of course, it ties into what we were talking about in
productivity
episode 1.
Right.
So, if you do not have a proper, legitimate, and transparent system of measuring your employees' performance over the years in a consistent manner, what happens is now you're forced to use last in, first out. And with that system of last in, first out, quite often you lose competent people and you keep people who have become stagnated, not incompetent, but stagnated. Right? Because you have people who take a job, and when they take a job, what happens to them is that they get to a point where they just become monotonous. I am just going to use this amount of my brain and this amount of my energy and this amount of my will, right? And I'm just going to do the bare minimum. Remember I was telling you last week about working hard versus working hardly?
Working hardly,
yes. So with that system now, if you have a proper system of performance evaluation and then a proper system that is called a PIP, performance improvement plan, for all your staff, you don't end up in a problem. But let's come back to this now. Where you do not have that system, you're forced to use what is this industry standard of last in, first out, and by automatic selection, all the recent people are going and all the people that are there forever are staying.
All right, now, while we're talking about retrenchment, because we have about 9 more minutes, right?
Okay.
While we're talking about retrenchment, we're talking about the reasons for retrenchment. Now, they would say restructuring, right? They're restructuring the company. In the era that we're in right now, this current situation with the pandemic, and what employers would have noticed. So employers have noticed, well, why do we need all this stuff? You know what I mean? I could operate with half the staff, or maybe 25% of the people that are hired, that I have working for me. They don't need to come into the office. They could work from home.
Yeah.
If you're working from home, that might give the employer a little leverage in terms of salary adjustments. Right? Because you don't need to come into the office.
Yeah.
Working from home, though, I don't know if if an employer cannot assess the performance of their staff in the workplace, assessing it with them working at home is going to be a disaster. Yeah. It's the same thing with children with school.
Yeah.
They go into physical classes now, but when they were online, how do you assess the child's performance and progress in terms of their education? Right? So we know that there are some jobs, if not majority of jobs, that will require people to be at the workplace. But we see in the last 2 years where employers are like, I could save some money here, you know, I could cut some corners. So is that enough, especially where we're going into a tech, well, we're already in the tech era, but we're going in further into the tech era where this whole digitalization or digital transformation is the term they're using in terms of where a lot of these companies are going. That could lead to even more retrenchment. So where are all these people going to go?
Yeah, so that all businesses are companies, but not all companies are businesses.
I follow you there, go ahead.
So the thing about it is a business is an operation for profit. Some companies are not. If you look at how companies are registered, not all companies, you have non-profit organizations that within the Companies Act is considered, you register it under the Companies Act and whatever, but it's not a business for profit, right? So once you're running a business for profit, you're going to be all the time looking at your operational cost, your capital expenditure, your operational expenditure, and what is ideal. That will never change, regardless of what people's views are about it. It will never change. At the end of the day, even looking at going back as far as ArcelorMittal, and there's something I have to make a point about this morning. In 2016, when ArcelorMittal closed its doors and sent everybody home without anything, first of all, a lot of people think that the company closed because of the union. It had nothing to do with the union. It was all about the profitability, and they did put out a statement that indicated that the cost of operating in Trinidad and Tobago has gone up.
It went high.
And they, by virtue of their inability to come to an agreement with the government as it relates to gas prices, it's published, it's in the public records. They closed their doors. Now, we lobbied for the government to change the RSBA or amend the RSBA to capture retrenchment is only applicable to when a company that is existing decides to close a part of its operation or reduce its operation. But if you close your business in its entirety, the RSBA doesn't apply.
Okay.
And it becomes now really at your discretion. Now, most private institutions pay off their employees. I'm telling you, I've seen that. Contrary to popular belief, most private institutions pay their employees, and they use the RSB formula of severance calculation as a guide to calculate their years of the value of the years of service, right? That even goes as far as when people retire in service. When people retire in service, we do not have a retirement act in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a lot of gaps in our industrial relations legislation, and the industrial court fills in with its legal precedents. But the truth is, the industrial court, and they do as much as they can, but the truth is we have a lot of gaps. And over the years, all these governments come and they go. We've never had a minister of labor, in my view, in my lifetime anyway, with the fortitude to push through, as a matter of fact, and get these things done. As a matter of fact, the ministers of labor behave like most of the human resource and industrial relations people in this country. Here's what they do. They go into a work environment, and instead of bringing to bear their expertise and their competency and standing with it, they fall in line with the people who they're supposed to be advising. So, as a professional, your role and responsibility is to provide the best advice that you can in line with law and legal precedents.
Right.
Right? Instead, you go there, you hear what the owner of the business is saying, and you now try to tailor your advice to make them feel happy.
Happy.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And what that does is now that diminishes and devalues your profession. And we have a lot of that where at the end of the day, what's the worst that could happen? You get fired? Well, at least you stand on a ground of principle. But remember, quite often business owners, you give them the advice and you give them the potential for negative fallout, they will make the right advice. In my profession over the years, I've never had a business owner say to me, now we're going to take that loss. I've never had that. They always, when they get the advice, they say, you know something, we'll do the right thing. They want to do the right thing, but they don't want to just hear that you are saying that. They want to know from what perspective you're saying it. And I never go into a company and say, oh, well, Narinesingh says.
Yeah.
This is what the law says. This is what the judgments say. This is what the best practice is. This is what the has come out in the industrial court. This is what your potential fallout is. Don't go in that direction. Do this, right? Now, even if I disagree with an employer disagrees with me and say, no, at the end of the day, I can stand and say that I have given them the best advice, and they choose to do what they want, right? But anyway, I think, Stefan, what we are facing, it's going to probably become more, it's going to reoccur more as we go into the months. And I want to go back to what we said in episode 2. People in Trinidad and Tobago need to stop looking, and I would like to say this to the public. Again, the working population, move away from this concept that this permanent employment is a guarantee. Move away from it. Take a position. Start to retool yourself. There are a lot of opportunities, a lot of institutions in this country that are providing training and development in different fields. Start to now sharpen a skill so that you can have flex security. Because flex security at the end of the day, your ability to have multiple income streams or have the potential to access multiple job markets will allow you to now survive. I see that there's some simple courses, something as simple as solar power. Stefan, at $1,200. Yeah. $1,200. So, how much time do we have?
We have about a minute.
A minute.
Yeah.
I wanna say this. A lot of people reached out to me in the last couple of weeks. They were not certain as to how my services operate, and I want to take a minute to explain. I'm a consultant. I can provide you, I do workshops, I do training seminars, I can provide you with advice and guidance on how you can probably enhance and develop your workforce and reorganize your workforce and your work culture. So, and I work with companies regardless of how big or how small they are, with a tailored budget. So a lot of questions people were asking, stuff when they were nervous, because again, one of the things, the trends in this country is that industrial relations consultants, the people who are competent, their cost for engaging their services beyond the some of these small and medium businesses.
Well, you see, the thing is when people look at cost in Trinidad and Tobago, right? And I realize that with Chef, with the course that he's doing, right? There's a reason why things cost what they cost. It's because there is a certain level of expertise that you're paying for in terms of the knowledge that you will gain. And in gaining the knowledge from these opportunities, because that's what it is, you know, is opportunity knocking on the door. It's either you're going to answer the door or you're going to pretend you're not hearing the knocking. In which case, you're going to end up in the same position that many people end up in for years to come. 10 years down the road, you're going to be looking back and saying, well, you know, what is I could I do different? What could I, you know, why it is we have the same problems today that I had 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago? It's because you identify the problem, but you never really move towards fixing it, right? So you had to fix the problems that currently exist, and Mr. Narinesingh is one of the people, well, not one of the people, but there are very few like him, I can tell you that has the expertise in solving those problems and working with a business in order to get the business functioning in a particular way so that your business becomes more productive because your workers, your employees have become more active in terms of their daily their day-to-day operations. And once you get them moving, once you get the employee moving in that way, your business is the wheel going to turn faster, and you're going to make a lot more than what you're making today. Because that's what you're in business for. You're in business to make money. You're in business to make as much money as possible in the 8-hour day that you have. If it, you know, I mean, if it's 8 hours a day, some people work, you know, longer than 8 hours. But that's what you're in business for.
And the goal is, of course, to do it with ethics and integrity.
Correct.
That's the goal.
You're not in business to spend money. If you're in business and you're only spending money, then you're not in business.
That's a social service.
That's a social service. That's right.
You understand? Government institution.
You get into business to make money. But we all, you know, a lot of employers or a lot of people that go into business or they want to start up a business, for instance. And what about people who want to start up a business in terms of your services?
Well, most of the time, companies that are starting up, it's the easiest way to structure. It's the easiest thing to do. It's always easier to do a build from scratch versus doing what is called when you do a renovation. Renovations are the hardest. So when you consider it, when you want to start up a business from scratch, we work with companies, we provide them with the basic policies and procedures. And I think next week we're going to talk about employment contracts. I think we need to talk about employment contracts and job descriptions because these form an intrinsic part of the process. Even leading all the way to if you have to restructure your business.
All right, cool, man. So I want to thank Mr. Narinesingh for coming in this week. He'll be back on next week, Thursday. All right, and at 6:30 a.m. you can look out for him there. We hope that the session was, you know, I'll get a session for free, eh? No, but that's what you get in. You know what I mean? And if you want to go further, you know what to do. You call 471-8957. The number is on the screen. That is 471-8947. 8957, sorry. 471-8957. 471-8957. All right? You call that number and you can get more information from Mr. Narinesingh. So, you celebrate a birthday as well this weekend?
Yeah, boy, I'm the 19th of June.
Imagine that, eh? He's an industrial relations consultant and he's born on Labor Day.
Go figure.
Go figure. You know what I mean? Boy.
See you guys next week.
Thanks for the holiday, though.
Of course.
Yeah, my birthday is the 18th, so the day after my birthday is always a holiday. They say I born to line. All right, Chef, you have, we rolling with the breakfast? All right, nice, man. We say we'll give you a little taste. You'll taste Chef hand there before you go.
All right.
Nice, man.
Right.
So you get a little birthday breakfast, too. I ain't seen no eclairs, Chef. I'm perturbed. I'm very disturbed about that. So we'll be back after this. People stay tuned.